Good morning. My name is Don Michaelman, and I want to welcome you to the regular scheduled meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Before we start the meeting, I'd like to have commission members introduce themselves. We will start with the members that are present. Butch?
That's Butch Tracy.
Ted Gambogi.
Good morning, Stan Goligoski.
And I believe we have George Lee on the Commissioner Lee.
George, you need to unmute yourself. George, you need to unmute yourself. His video and sound are off. So, oh, there he is. There you are.
Commissioner Lee, would you like to introduce yourself?
George Lee.
All right. And is Commissioner Hutchinson online too?
No, he's not
Do not see Commissioner
this time.
Hutchinson.
Not at this time.
He told us his location connectivity may be sketchy, so
All righty. I hereby call to order the April 29th, 2021 public hearing of the City of Prescott Planning Commission. Attending also are council members Siska and Good on that. This is an open public hearing and is being tape recorded and videotaped by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media, the public, local cable and or radio stations, and may be also rebroadcast. We have a total of 5 commission members present in actuality and online, and requires 4 votes for a majority. As some individuals may be attending this meeting remotely, all parties wishing to be heard, including commission members, are required to state their name prior to speaking in order to ensure accurate minutes. Members of the public, when called upon, are required to state their name and address for the record so that we may know who is speaking and be able to contact them later at a later date if necessary. Would you please also check your cell phones to make sure they're on silent? Would appreciate that. The first item on the agenda is the April 8th, 2021 meeting minutes. Are there any corrections to be made? If there are no corrections, is there a motion concerning the minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on that. Kaylee, if you would call off the roll for voting.
Yes, just to verify, Goligoski was first and
Correct.
Tracy was second.
Correct.
Okay. Butch Tracy,
Yes.
George Lee,
Yes.
Stan Goligoski,
Yes.
Ted Gambogi,
Yes.
Don Michaelman.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
The next item on the agenda is PLN 20-005, preliminary plat of Hidden Hills subdivision, a 158-lot subdivision, site zoning, single family 18, SF 18, property owner JCI Investments LLC, APN 106-04001L and 106-04001N. George, I believe it's up to you.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for a preliminary plat for a piece of property that was annexed into the city way back in 2015. This property was originally part of the Deepwell Ranches properties and came into the city through annexation the same time that the larger piece that's covered by the master plan and development agreement to the north of it. So the property in question, see if I can get my mouse to show up here. I've been doing this consistently, clicking in the wrong spot and having the mouse show up on the wrong page. It's these 2 parcels. This is Pinion Oak Subdivision. This is Pioneer Parkway. And this is Williamson Valley Road. So it's this large area here.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a tendency to get too far away from the microphone, so thank you. The property is west of Pinion Oak Subdivision. Pinion Oaks is bisected by Pioneer Parkway that runs through here. This portion of Pinion Oaks was a later development. The original started over here. As it progressed this way, it runs into this property that was part of Deepwell Ranch. As Deepwell Ranch annexed the larger piece up here to the north, that most of us are familiar with because of the master plan, these two parcels, this piece of property, came in at the same time through an annexation simultaneous with the other annexation. This is not part of that master plan that is effective for the larger area of Deepwell Ranch. So this is subject to standard city zoning, planning, platting processes.
George, before you move off on that map, would you kind of give us a general idea where the airport is?
The airport is off the map back this direction. So way up in the far right-hand corner of the property, this is actually one of the smaller existing subdivisions that is adjacent to the airport. That's been in existence for 30 years or so. And then Williamson Valley Road, this area is in the county. The green line is actually the corporate limits of the city. You can see that this property runs from the west side of Pinyon Oaks all the way to the boundary with Yavapai County over here. Just to give a bigger general picture, and one I may come back to discussing connectivity as we talk about street connectivity later. Connection to the property starts from here, and I will get into that a little more detail in just a moment. It runs into the property with a future potential connection going northbound into this currently unincorporated Yavapai County section that is owned by Deepwell Ranch, with potential of connecting through this parcel, which is a state land department, and potentially farther into the future connecting with this larger piece that is part of the Deepwell master plan and future development that's planned up there.
George, does it plan to connect with any other road?
Initially, no. There will be an emergency egress, ingress, and I'll show you that on the plat itself. The future connectivity will depend on development patterns that occur here and here, or potentially if the state land department sells their property for development here. So as typical in this portion of Arizona, this is owned by the state land department. This is owned by the state land department. It's a series of sort of checkerboards: private property, land department, private property, land department. The state land department's job is to sell property for development at the highest possible value. Their purpose is the same as a developer from the city's perspective. So we consider their land to be developable land based on that. Access to the property is very interesting. So this is Commerce Drive. As Commerce Drive comes up and intersects with Pioneer Parkway, this will become a four-way intersection of some type. Current pattern with both the county and with ADOT, who the county would coordinate with on this, though it's not an ADOT roadway, would likely see this be a roundabout. That's the wave of the future for intersections. So this will likely be a roundabout to prevent the flow of traffic from having to stop along here. Roundabouts provide for movement of traffic, not necessarily providing for like stop one direction and go another direction. So picture a roundabout there.
What's
with
the
the extension of that,
there, George?
I'm sorry?
What's the speed limit at that point?
I believe it's posted at 50 or 45.
I think it's
What the actual speed limit is how fast you can go before you're caught. It's a highway design. People tend to drive highway speeds. So the roadway connection would be an extension of Commerce Drive. It would continue across this way, making sort of an S curve. Sorry, my arrows just wouldn't bend the right way. Up through across the hills and providing access into the developable parcel from its south, basically the southeast side of the property. Thanks to Mr. Gambogi for driving out there and taking a photograph of the work in progress. It's rather spectacular, and it's a significant road construction project. I do want to go back to the previous picture for just a moment to explain why this took so long. So the property up here was annexed into the city in 2015. Immediately after that, an application was submitted to the Bureau of Land Management. So if I say BLM, that's who I'm talking about, running across this property to allow for access to this property. So this larger piece is under the jurisdiction, at least partially, and requiring their approval. Bureau of Land Management takes a while to approve things. It took about 4 years for approval of the right-of-way to occur. After that, infrastructure designs were submitted to the city, and the road design was approved and is now underway. So again, construction of that roadway. It's expected to be 2 lanes. It's not initially intended to be divided, but it could end up being divided by a median. Just to give you a quick look again at zoning in the area, all of this SPC is Pioneer Park. Again, there's shared ownership and responsibility of the city and the county here, and the city, county, and Bureau of Land Management up here. And then the properties in question are these. At the initial annexation, it was zoned SF18, that's single family 18, minimum lot size 18,000 square feet. That was in an effort to make it compatible with the adjacent properties in Pinion Oaks, which have the same zoning. This property will develop slightly different with a different pattern than Pinion Oaks, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. So the general layout of the proposed preliminary plat is linear, very linear. The access roadway comes in. There will be a street intersection here. This is that future connection to the north. It will be reserved but not dedicated as right-of-way yet. Reserved for future connectivity simply means the developer continues to own it. The city is not liable or responsible for it at this stage. When that roadway is necessary, it will be constructed and dedicated to the city as public right-of-way because of its arterial connection, the nature of the roadway connecting to the north. The development concept is slightly, yes, sir.
George, you're saying that road will not be built right now,
Correct.
but when it is built, the developer of this property is the one who has to build the road out then.
Yes. As with most development patterns, they're responsible for creating the infrastructure. If it's to be public infrastructure, it's then dedicated to the city after that construction.
Who's funding the work that's going on right now?
It is the developer of this project. And most of you have seen them before. There are a couple of different corporate names, but it's Jim Chamberlain and Vic Chapman. I know you've seen in here before with other projects. That's who's developing this property. Again, back to the layout of the property. They've chosen to do something rather unusual with the design. They've incorporated most of their density in this southern piece. So there are 2 parcels currently, one northern parcel, one southern parcel. There are 6 lots in this northern half of the property, and all of the remaining 318 lots are down here.
How many lots did you say are down there?
That's not the right number, never mind. I'll get you to that in just a moment. There was a desire to keep these larger lots adjacent to the ranch lands that are currently in the county that are part of Deepwell Ranch. Those larger lots make for a compatibility with the ranch properties more than a higher density development like this or like Pinion Oaks. As you can see from the layout, their intention is to provide for smaller than 18,000 square foot lots by doing a planned area development. So the subdivision is a PAD. The planned area development process requires that you dedicate a minimum of 25% open space, and by doing so, it allows for flexibility through this review and through council's approval to reduce the lot sizes and modify the setbacks because you're creating and protecting a larger amount of open space. Most of the open space they're showing are areas between ridge lines. So these tend to be the high ground along here, and these are the lower ground. That's areas that will include natural drainage that's already there. It also includes potential for connectivity for trails, even wildlife corridors throughout this project that may lead it down into the existing trail system in Pioneer Park just to the south. That's something that developers have recognized in recent years as a priority among property owners to have that kind of trail connectivity, so that's what we expect to see here. The layout, again, is a series of cul-de-sacs. Each of these cul-de-sacs, as you see where they go, provides a connection to one of the larger lots to the north. So all of those larger lots to the north are connected via the roadway network, the neighborhood roadway network. They're not reliant on this future arterial connection that will run much further to the north. They've provided open space buffer between their development and Pinyon Oaks to help mitigate some of the potential impacts on Pinyon Oaks during the development process. And they've done something that was requested during the annexation. One of the concerns expressed by Pinyon Oaks during the annexation was this developing and having all of this traffic flow through Pinyon Oaks to get back to Pioneer Parkway. We wouldn't expect that to happen, and from a planning perspective, planners like connectivity for several reasons. One, for safety, but otherwise it also helps connect neighborhoods together in a social fabric, if not a vehicular connection. The problem we have with the connectivity is in Pinyon Oaks, there is only one stub street here that potentially could connect to this property, and it's about 30 to 40 feet higher at its ending point than the property immediately adjacent to the west. So there's a ridge and a fairly significant drop off to get down to this property. As a result of that physical condition and the request by many of the Pinyon Oaks folks during the annexation process, the developer has chosen not to make a connection between his development and Pinyon Oaks. So there is no physical connectivity of streets between the two neighborhoods. There's a benefit to Pinyon Oaks of not having additional traffic. There's a deficit of not having another way in and out. The same applies to this subdivision. At this end of the subdivision towards the west, again, this is the corporate limit, city limits with county on this side, city on this side. They are proposing an emergency egress, a chained or gated access that will allow fire and police access into or out of the property, but no typical day-to-day private vehicular access. So this becomes, in effect, for traffic circulation purposes, one long cul-de-sac with branches off of it. From a safety standpoint, this meets the fire department's requirement to have a second emergency ingress egress based on the size of the subdivision, the number of lots. Water and sewer infrastructure will be required, hydrants will be required, houses may be sprinklered given those lengths of roadways, and most likely will all be required to have a sprinkler system. That's a pretty common thing now under current fire rules, and especially with a subdivision that has so many linear portions to it without internal street connectivity. Just a zoomed in version of the previous to show you the large lots. So there's a very large lot here, a large lot here, a large lot here, a large lot here, another large lot, and then a giant one. This one's 45 acres. That's pretty big when it comes to residential lots, even in the areas adjacent to the ranch land at the north end of town. A little bit better zoomed in version of the southeast portion of the property. You can see that alignment and the potential for the street alignment, connectivity, water and sewer infrastructure will be in the roadways, and access to all of the parcels will be via internal street connectivity cul-de-sacs. And then the western end, there is a very large Western Power main transmission line, running through the property here. They've avoided putting any houses under that, appropriately so. That emergency ingress egress is here. They've proposed something that we're not seeing in a lot of new subdivisions, but was pretty common in the past, a place for people to park their recreational vehicles, trailers or RVs of various types, someplace for the residents of the subdivision to store them and not have to look for a site somewhere else to do that. That hasn't been very common recently. In the past, it was pretty common for most subdivisions to have something like this set aside. So we were kind of happy to see that because there is a significant demand for that type of storage. There's
George, is
green
that,
space easement.
I know it's early, but for that RV storage, is that open or closed?
I believe it will be fenced
Open
and
parking lot.
only for the residents of that subdivision. So not an enclosed structure. And that could change later on with the potential for perhaps roofed structures, but at this time they have not proposed that. And then I believe that was the end of my slideshow. So I thought I had one more slide on there with the proposed motion on it. I apologize. Apparently I cut that one. So if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions for George?
Don't have a representative here from the developer. I was expecting someone, and I apologize. I can try to answer, but if it's for the developer, we may need to ask them.
I've got one.
Ben?
George, do you know if the water and sewer is going to come off of Pinion Oaks Phase 2 or off of the other city parcel that's near Williamson Valley Road?
It will initially come from Pioneer Parkway, crossing Pioneer Parkway. There will be a connection here. We love to loop water, especially so that we have multiple points where water can connect. So I would expect that water infrastructure will come up here and connect into Pinion Oaks, but the primary access for water and sewer will be this way.
Oh, on the road that they're building? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So how many lots where?
That's going to be, again, the 6 lots up here, and then I do not have my staff report handy. Do you have my staff report handy? Thank you, ma'am. I ran from one meeting to this meeting and forgot it, and I apologize. So the proposal is 158 total lots, with only 6 of them being in the north half of the property. So 6 lots in the north half, 158 total. So all of the remainder of the lots are in this southern area and a fairly high density. Based on lot sizes, this is more equivalent to single family 9 type of size lots. But again, under a PAD, with the SF18 zoning, they can reduce the lot sizes and reduce setbacks as necessary as part of that process. So
Let's go through the numbers again. I'm
One
looking at this map, I see 103 in phase 2, and that is that 55 in phase 1?
and then an additional 6 up here
So it's 158
total, counting all of them. So the phase line is actually kind of odd. This is not a separate phase. This is split. This is split by the 2 phases. So some of these large lots are part of phase 1, and some of these large lots are part of phase 2. So the phases are color coded. If you look at the light yellow, one phase, the light blue, the second phase. So those numbers per phase add up to 158. Of that 158, the 6 large lots are up here, and they're split between the 2 phases evenly, 3 in each of those.
I'm still lost.
Yeah, we're not matching up.
I'm looking at this map.
Yes.
I
So the numbers on the map
see
are
phase
numbers
1,
per
is
phase.
that a 55?
Yes.
Okay, phase
So-
1 is in green, and phase 2 is in green, 103. So 103 plus 55, and then
Is 158.
there's 6 more up.
No. So again, look at the color of the lots. The light yellow color is phase 1. So 3 of those large lots
I'm
are part of
seeing
phase 1.
written in the green area, and that's why I'm confused.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Okay,
So
phase 1 is the tan area.
So the light tan or yellow is phase 1, the light blue is phase 2. So the large lots are actually part of each of those 2 phases, not a separate count.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Could have explained that a little better at the beginning. Do you have any other questions?
Other questions? I have a couple, George.
Certainly.
With the construction being basically on the ridge line, is that going to have any effect upon the water flow that's going down and up north?
As part of any subdivision design, they have to create a grading and drainage plan to account for that water. Currently, the water flows off of the ridges down into those valleys. If you've been out there, they're valleys. They're not shallow and they're not small. That area will still account for the water, and they're going to have to provide us with information through their engineering for grading and drainage that proves that they will be able to carry that water in whatever direction it's flowing now. And I believe the north half of this flows north and the south half flows south. So they'll have to deal with the drainage that will be created by the road infrastructure and the roofs of the houses, the impervious surfaces that they're adding. So that's part of the calculation of the infrastructure design that happens between preliminary and final plat. So they provide us a full set of drawings, and we verify that, in fact, they're not going to create a flooding issue to any nearby property owners, although, again, there aren't any nearby property owners that would be adversely affected by drainage because of the elevation difference between this property and most of Pinyon Oaks.
Okay. Now, somewhere down the road, could those 6 large lots above be subdivided?
Legally and under the Land Development Code, yes, they could come back to revise the plat to create more lots. It would come back as a revision of plat. That's treated like a final plat. It would go straight to the city council after a staff review. So we would look at it from infrastructure perspective and overall density perspective. And then if they meet the city's code requirements, we take it to the city council for an approval of that revision of plat. They can't split them other ways because it's part of a subdivision as soon as this is approved under its final plat. So it would take a formal action of city council to allow them to split it. They can't do it like you split large parcels in the county.
Okay. Any other questions for George? This is votable today, right, George?
It is. If you move to approve this today, we will send it on to the city council for action at a future meeting. And then once that preliminary plat's been approved, it would go back to the developer to come up with all of his infrastructure and eventually submit a final plat. And just a reminder, I'm sure all of you are aware, final plats don't come back here. They go straight to the city council. The intent of the process is to have your input at this stage to set the pattern for the development. If there are any tweaks along the way and they violate the requirements of substantial conformance between preliminary and final, then it could come back to you.
Okay. Is there a motion concerning this?
I would like to move that we hear from the applicant.
I don't think he's here.
I don't have a representative of the applicant here. I apologize. We were expecting someone, but he's not here.
Now, can we penalize him 5 lots for not being here?
You might negotiate ownership of 5 lots. If you absolutely need to talk to them, it is within your purview to defer action. But if it's a general question and you feel comfortable voting on it today, you are within your ability to do so.
You want to defer?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly. So, and just a reminder, we can't open it to the public. We may have someone via Zoom who would like to attend.
We'll do.
Thank you, Commissioners. Phil Good, City Councilman. My question regarding this initial review and approval is primarily focused on access, ingress, and egress. This potential emergency exit way over on the west side. Apparently from the topographical lines, that looks like a pretty steep slope. So in order for these phases to be built, even phase 1 would only have one way in and one way out. Unless they decide to put in the entire road system and the emergency exit across that steep slope into the, I think it's Cliff Rose Drive up there. Don't all these have to be sprinklered?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I can answer part of that. There two parts of that answer. most likely all of these lots will be required to be sprinklered just because of the length of the cul-de-sac. So that by itself will trigger the requirement. They will require the emergency ingress egress at the west end to be functional before we allow for individual house permits to be issued. So they will have to at least create a temporary access all the way through before we issue permits to any one of those lots for building construction.
And I would expect that road probably is going to be unimproved.
The ingress egress will be improved to the standard required for fire access. So an all-weather surface, which could be a compacted DG type material, it has to be able to support a fire truck, 75,000 pound vehicle weight. So it won't be just a graded road. It'll have to have some improvements done to it to make it.
Yeah, I think that should be clarified, because if you're trying to put a unimproved dirt impacted road on a steep slope like that, you'd have some real problems trying to get out of there if you had a wildfire. And clearly the proposed roadway going northward, who knows how long or when that is ever going to be constructed.
That's very true. That could be 5 years away. It could be 15 years away. It will depend on development pressure to the north.
Yeah, I think those are questions that are pretty important to be asked and clarified.
In line with Councilman Good's question, where does that road connect to?
I'm sorry, which road? The emergency egress or the future connection to the north? The future connection to the north would connect to future roadways planned by both the State Land Department. They have a master plan of their properties, and Deepwell Ranch further to the north. The Deepwell Ranch master plan actually shows a crisscrossing of roads to the north up there to provide access to, let me see if I can go back to that larger picture, that would provide access eventually through this property across to here and further up into this parcel. So right now, Deepwell Ranch is building here. Here's Westwood subdivision that you've seen not too long ago. The connection between Westwood subdivision and this portion of Deepwell Ranch is difficult because of a large wash that crosses here. It requires a substantial bridge. So the intent of the master plan was to provide access to that large area from the south, either from here across state land or from here across Deepwell Ranch land, not yet annexed into the city.
A fire truck is going to drive that road?
No, this is a future connection at some far distant point in the future. It will be a full roadway, probably divided at least 2 lanes each way when it gets to this area, because now it's an arterial. It's connecting an arterial roadway through this neighborhood to multiple neighborhoods to the north. But again, at this point in time, we don't have any designs and we don't have any rights of way aligned for it, and can't without having some kind of concept plan for development of the state land, which probably won't develop without annexation into the city, and the Deepwell Ranch property immediately north of this, which again probably won't develop until annexation in the city.
Talking about Commerce?
No, this would be the extension roadway. Yes.
Commerce.
Yes.
I'm asking, where does the emergency road connect to?
So the emergency road connection, if I can get a better look at it here. The emergency road connection is this, and it connects to an existing county road, and a portion of that county road would need to be improved. All of this would need to be created and improved to meet fire department access requirements. And eventually it goes to Williamson Valley Road. So access from Williamson Valley Road for emergency only, and then the main access off of Pioneer Parkway.
So on the private land adjacent to the west there is already an existing county road.
There is a county road right-of-way that touches this property.
It's a right-of-way, so the developer has to improve that also.
So that portion will have to be improved per whatever the county requires, as well as the city's fire access requirements, because we will be using it to access our property. And that's where, go ahead.
Is that from Williamson Valley Road?
It's about a half a mile winding through a neighborhood to get to Williamson Valley Road.
Thank you.
Maybe not quite a half a mile. And I'm not sure if it shows well on this large picture. That does. So this is the county road that connects. There's Williamson Valley Road. This is Cliff Rose. And then at this point, it becomes an emergency ingress, egress, not a full road connection. And that's for the benefit of both these folks who are a developed neighborhood and these folks. So it's emergency only. And then again, that primary connection over here. So there is a loop road system that goes through for emergency purposes. For day-to-day use purposes, it's one long cul-de-sac.
Thank you.
George, can you go back to the one with the contour lines that shows Cliff Rose there? That's pretty good there.
That one?
So most of the contour lines, the steeper portion is already on the county road, right? And then it looks like the contour lines are a little.
They're going to be cutting
separated.
across them within their property. They will be following them within the county area.
It looks steeper right now on the existing unimproved road. Is what you're saying.
Correct. It will effectively become a bench with a road on it. If you look at where that slope goes, they'll follow the slope with the roadway within that existing county road.
That's helpful. Great, thanks.
Any other questions for George? Anybody from the public want to make a comment? Do we have anybody online to make a comment?
No one has their hand raised.
Okay. Is there a motion concerning this applicant? Do we need to have the applicant come another time? Or do we want to make a motion concerning this submission?
No, I think George really explained it well for me. I think I've got it.
You want to make a motion then?
I'm not sure how to go about that.
Just read it at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, I moved to recommend. Sorry. I move to recommend approval of PLN 20-005 preliminary plat of Hidden Hills subdivision.
We have a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, Kaylee, could you call the roll, please?
Butch Tracy,
Yes.
George Lee,
Yes.
Stan Goligoski,
Yes.
Ted Gambogi,
Yes.
Don Michaelman.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay. George, is there any staff updates?
No, sir. I do believe we have at least one so far of our former membership we've invited here this morning, so we would appreciate you hanging around a little bit, and we'll say hi to them and engage in some refreshments.
Okay. Then I call this meeting adjourned.